Here's an amazing statistic. There have been no new medical schools built in the last 35 years. And now 2 major institutions on Long Island have joined forces to build a school that they believe will become the new medical school model for the rest of the country. Today on Medical Update, we'll hear about the new state-of-the-art training methods of the doctors of the future as we meet the newly named first dean of Hofstra University Medical School in partnership with North Shore LIJ Health System. Stay with us. An important event took place recently to introduce 2 major Long Island institutions.
Hofstra University and the North Shore Long Island Jewish Health System together, and I emphasize the word together, have successfully accomplished the first 2 indispensable steps to making this medical school a reality. And as a result, subject to the normal accreditation process, as a result, we are absolutely confident that the medical school will open its doors to welcome its first class in the fall of 2011.
We all run organizations, and you don't run an organization to survive. You run an organization to excel. You don't run an organization for today, and you don't run an organization based on what you think was good yesterday. You run an organization for what you want to achieve a decade from now, or 2 decades from now. And that requires thinking out of the box and doing things that most people think are not possible to do. And so today, this is a historic and a momentous occasion for Hofstra University. And I welcome all of the people from Hofstra who are here. And it's also a historic and momentous occasion for North Shore LIJ. And looking around, I noticed that we have most of the chairs, the clinical chairs of North Shore LIJ here in the senior leadership, and I welcome you. And so we have 2 premier Long Island organizations, both dedicated to a similar mission, which is to be the best at what we do, to be number 1 in our respective fields, to be the best not just here on Long Island, but be regarded and seen as the best regionally and nationally. And Stu and I believe that, and our leadership teams believe that, and our boards, our respective boards, believe that. So we now have come together, these 2 Long Island premier organizations, to create a partnership to build something new, exciting, challenging, but something that will be great for healthcare going forward. Something that will be great for medical research. Something that will be terrific for medical education. And something that will be extraordinary for the status and the economy of Long Island. And obviously, launching such an endeavor requires extraordinary leadership. As Stu said, somebody with unparalleled knowledge in the area of medical education, somebody who is recognized nationally as a leader and internationally as a leader, somebody who has amazing imagination, somebody who is very goal-oriented, very confident, but has the wonderful characteristic of modesty and humility. Somebody who thinks out of the box, but somebody who is grounded in reality. Somebody with vision and somebody with passion. When we looked around, we realized that we had the best person in our midst, a native Long Islander. who grew up in Northport, practiced medicine in Huntington for many years, then moved into the city, became known in national organizations and in national organizations, and is called upon these days and has been for many years for his expertise at most of the big national events. And I've had the privilege of working with him for the past 3 years as the Chief Medical Officer of the North Shore LIJ Health System, a role that he will continue to hold and that will bind the two organizations even further than we've already agreed to do by having somebody who holds a role at the health system and somebody who is the dean of the new medical school. So it is my pleasure now to introduce a wonderful leader, a great team player, and a person that will carry this medical school into the future as a star, Larry Smith.
That same Dr. Lawrence Smith joins us today. He is the Chief Medical Officer of the North Shore LIJ Health System, and he's also the first Dean of the Hofstra University School of Medicine. Now, your hair was black before you accepted that, and now look at you.
Well, you age quickly when you do two jobs.
Now, what I don't understand, and I was not aware of it until I learned it, that there were no medical schools, MD school, producing schools in the last, 30 years?
Just about, yes.
Why? I don't understand that.
Well, it certainly is an interesting phenomena. The last medical school before recently was 1978 in this country, and then we went almost 30 years without building another medical school. And strangely, during that time, our population grew, it got older, it got sicker, medicine got more complicated. There was a need for more specialists, more primary care docs, and the way we handled it was to ever become dependent on physicians trained abroad to come here and fill the needed doctor spots to take care of our population. And recently there's been a call to the universities of this country and to the existing medical schools to really increase the home production of physicians for our own population.
Now, where did this call come from?
It came from the Association of American Medical Colleges. At the time, the head of it was Dr. Jordan Cohen, and he, I think, rightly assessing the situation and the extraordinary dependence, 40% of our doctors almost coming from abroad, realized that it was really time to wake up the medical education institutions in this country and have them step up to the plate.
Well, at one point, we were reading in the media about a surfeit of doctors. There were too many doctors, and that's why no medical schools. But that's not true at all, is it?
Certainly wasn't true. And you know, there were a lot of health manpower projections that were fundamentally inaccurate and predicted a glut of doctors that never appeared, and in fact just the opposite. As I said, the population grew, the baby boomers are quickly approaching retirement age with increased medical needs, and there was never a doctor glut, just the opposite.
Would you say that the quality of medical care in this country has suffered because we were dependent of 40% of foreign doctors coming here?
I think we've been fortunately lucky in bringing in extraordinarily talented people from abroad. But there's a price for that. The countries that we're importing them from, many of them would well need those doctors to remain home in their own countries. And certainly there is a specialness both culturally, scientifically, and educationally to our training our own doctors for our own population. So I think the answer is we probably have not suffered, but we really have an obligation to train our own healthcare workforce.
Now this is the first one of the first schools in that 30-year drought.
So now there is an explosion of interest in new medical schools, and there are somewhere between 10 to perhaps even as high as 15 new medical schools in the planning stage. One that's actually opened already, and a number that will be second medical schools of already existing medical schools. So probably think the number 13 is about right now, that there's probably 13 serious endeavors started to start new medical schools in the country.
Now, is there a blueprint? I mean, medical school is medical school. You teach
Right.
certain courses. It's been done this way for 100 years. Is there a the same blueprint, or are you going to do something that's going to be different in this case?
I think we will very much try to do something different for a number of reasons. One is that we realize that there are new skills that physicians need that they didn't need to know before. The use of technology, the use of information and data, the ability to get just-in-time information because of the use of the internet and computer databases. We need to interface between the needs of patients and humanistic skills and primary care, and the ability to apply the most cutting-edge technologies to the most serious diseases we face, and how do those different teams of caregivers work together to really make sure the patient is cared for well. And this whole concept of teams with different roles and different ways to organize around what's wrong with the patient is something we never train people to do. And sometimes it's happened well, and sometimes it's happened poorly.
Is it something you can follow that's been done before, or is this an entirely new approach?
There's certainly a set of core requirements, core knowledge and skills that every medical student has to have. And we have to figure out how to best facilitate their learning that during the 4 years of medical school. But how we organize it, how we sequence it, the experiences we put people in, the ways we teach, I think are all challenges to do it differently and do it better.
Okay, so you're going to set up a new medical school. It's going to take how many years?
Take us about 3 years to do the full planning process.
Now, when you say we will do the full planning process, that means the onus is really on you.
I'm the leader.
You're the leader. So how do you go about this from steps 1 on down? What do you do now? You have to spend some time getting some things together.
So step 1 is to prepare for the preliminary accreditation. The way medical schools work in this country, you need to be accredited by both your state, by the local accrediting university body, in this case Middle States, and then by the LCME, the Liaison Committee on Medical Education, which is the final really accrediting body used in the United States and Canada.
But this is going to be entirely different. You're developing a new weapon, a new tank, a new car.
Absolutely.
And you're going to have to go back to the folks who say, well, that ain't the way we done it before, pal. I mean, it's not going to be that easy. Let me take a break and come back so I don't have to interrupt your discussion.
Okay.
And give you a chance to think about it, okay?
Terrific.
All right. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Oh, those boys are much too much. Those boys are much too much. We got the spirit. We're hot. We can't be stopped. We got the spirit. We're hot. We can't be stopped. We're going to beat them and bust them. Beat them.
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life.
Let's get a little bit rowdy. R-O-W-D-Y.
Take time to be a dad
One more
today.
time. Oh, those boys are much too much. Those boys.
Have a banana.
Eating well and playing go together like best friends.
You better believe it.
With the food pyramid, the bare necessities of living healthy are easy.
Bare necessities, the simple bare necessities.
So eat right, be active,
I'll move. That's it.
and don't forget to have fun. That's the way to be the best
You're such a fun baloo.
at anything you do. You can go to mypyramid.gov to play some games and find out more.
We can do procedures like intubating the patient, doing defibrillation, mimicking a complex cardiac arrest. And we do team training. We have men, women, and even babies that are simulated. And of course, we use all the real hospital equipment, hospital beds, intravenous pumps. All of the equipment here will be the same equipment they'll use when they're actually in the hospital in an emergency.
Now, that was you, Dr. Larry Smith.
It was.
2 years ago, and now you got a chance to go ahead. So that was the technology you were describing in the special event that we did.
Yes.
But this is a whole new blueprint that you have to come up with. So what do? Do you select committees? You can't do it all on your own.
Definitely not. So we'll have many committees that'll look at the different aspects of building this medical school, first on paper and then in reality. And the building will be building a faculty, building a curriculum, and building buildings to actually conduct all this education in.
Is this sort of a backwards routine that you're doing? Instead of having a medical school reach out, you're having everybody reach in?
Correct. And so this unique partnership of the health system and the university offers us many faculty from the university, both science and non-science faculty, the thousands of full-time doctors that work for our health system, the community-based physicians, the hospitals, the residency programs, all coming together with our research institute. And so I see it as all the pieces that surround the medical school, and my job is to orchestrate this incredible symphony of riches in the right way to pull off a whole new way to train the best that we can do. But to be honest, I have to be humble in this. We really have a lot of resources that we're starting with. And this is not like starting from scratch. This is like putting all the pieces together to make the right picture.
Well, it really is a combination of both when you come to think of it. You're going to introduce all kinds of new technology.
Yes.
How does this differ from what goes on today? Give me some examples of how you're going to differ.
So we saw the simulation.
Right.
And so whether it's simulation with mannequins, which is what that film was, or simulation with virtual reality, or simulation with computer-generated patient problems, we're looking at how do you put knowledge into action, and how do you learn the skills in a safer way than simply the first time practicing on patients. And those are real changes in medical education. The interesting thing, and I think about this all the time, is that it isn't really about how smart you are or how much you know in medicine. It's can you take what you know and put it into action when faced with a patient, when surrounded by a team of people all intent on delivering care. And so that idea of knowledge in action really changes how we're going to teach. You know, whether it's using classroom technology, whether it's using video, iPods, internet, or things like the simulation just to make it safer to learn. These are all really new challenges that fit Generation X and the millennial generation. That's how they learn. Maybe it wasn't how I learned, but it's a really exciting opportunity to stimulate these young physicians in training to not just be smart, but be able to use that knowledge, to go get it when they don't have it, to be comfortable that they can teach themselves about new issues as they progress through their careers and not just be dependent on what they learned in the past.
So it seems that what you're going to have to do is find special teachers. You're going to have to find a special kind of a kid who can come into a university, learn this way, and then keep on learning. Because most doctors, once they've got 5-10 years gone, they can't keep up with the trade.
Absolutely.
So how do you do this?
Well, I think if I was looking for one attribute in the teachers and the students, it's people who are comfortable saying, I don't know. If you're willing to say, I don't know, then if I give you the skill set to fill that gap and go and teach it to yourself or find the right people who can teach it to you, I think people can stay up with this incredibly rapid pace of changing knowledge and changing skills in medicine. And I need faculty who are comfortable with that very same model, because if the students don't see that role modeled, they'll really believe you're supposed to learn everything in medical school forever, and that's just not true anymore.
It's that changeable.
Absolutely.
Who's going to support all this?
Well,
in other countries, government supports medical schools. The students don't have to pay anything. And
absolutely. In many countries, creating your own physician workforce is considered a national priority. In this country, the state universities partially support medical education. In the private universities, students pay a fairly high price in tuition to go to these schools. And in fact, medical education debt of graduating students is becoming a bigger and bigger problem in this country.
Well, we're talking about students now, and I can see mom and dad sitting at home listening and say, wow, a medical school right here on the island, unique.
Right.
I want to get my kid into that. What kind of students would you be looking for? Would it be different than the kind of student who now goes to one of these prestigious medical schools?
Well, I think we should be listening to the patients and thinking about the future. So, you listen to the patients, and the patients tell you, we want doctors who listen, who communicate well, who are caring, empathetic. And you look to the future, and you need doctors who can manage an avalanche of new data, ever-changing knowledge base, high technology, new formations of teams to take care of people. And I think that, if we think about what is the patient telling us they need, what is the future of medicine looking like we need, we'll begin to shape what kind of young people will thrive in that environment.
Now, the announcement was made recently, so I can't really get kind of information I'd like to get out of you, but what are the steps that you're going to be taking over the next several years? How are you going to approach solving this puzzle, putting all these pieces together?
In the planning process, we will not only try to design a cutting-edge, innovative curriculum, but we will address issues like what criteria will we use for admission to the school? What type of faculty and what type of faculty training will we do to get our faculty to encourage the kind of learning we want? How will we build a physical facility that mimics the kind of curriculum we want? Will we build a living center? We could call it a dormitory, but medical students are older than that. Can we build a living facility right next to the education facility so we create a living learning community? And that is something that many medical schools have tried, but this, I think, is critically important, that we create a community of learners. Can we encourage the faculty to be friends, mentors, role models, and teachers of these students?
What kind of doctors will you produce? I mean, are these going to be generalists, specialists?
So I would say we won't have any particular goal in terms of what type of specialty. I would hope that we train people that go into all fields of medicine, but with one common denominator, which is whatever they do it to achieve excellence. So if they want to be a community pediatrician, they be the defining standard of pediatrics in that community. And if they're going to be a medical scientist, that they create breakthrough knowledge that changes the way we practice medicine. I'm less concerned with what field they go into than that we train people who become leaders and who strive for excellence in whatever they do.
Is there some kind of a timeline that you can give me right now, or is it a little too soon?
Well, if we don't stumble at all, we'll accept our first class in 2011. So they'll graduate in 2015. They'll begin to finish their residency programs 2018-19. And let's hope that as they graduate and stay perhaps predominantly on Long Island or the New York area, that they'll begin to fill the needs and change the culture of doctoring as soon as that.
Will this residency program take place within the same institution? Will you be following the typical pattern of sending them off somewhere?
The North Shore LIJ health system has a large number of residencies already. We have 91 residencies and fellowships already in existence. So any student who wants to stay within the health system, we will have plenty of room for it. We take students from medical schools from all over the country. But you also want your graduates to be your best public relations advocates. So it would be good for them to go to other places. And I would hope that any residency program that gets our graduates steps back and says, these are really well-trained young doctors. And I think we have to think about that they should look and behave specially, that they're good thinkers, that they're kind caregivers, that they're scientifically rigorous, and that they stand out among the crowd.
From what you tell me, this is an unusual kind of an institution that you're striving for. It will be totally different. Do you see any roadblocks ahead? It's kind of difficult to change a culture that's been around, even medicine, for 100 years, to make an abrupt change. Generally, I find in medicine, it's always a small change, and those who strive to come out there with dramatic changes generally get knocked back.
I think the biggest roadblock, as you say, is that you can control a lot of things that happen within the four walls of medical school. But if they graduate into residency programs that are 20 years behind the times, if they practice in health systems that aren't looking forward but are looking back, if they work in physician groups that feel beleaguered because of all the pressures on them right now, they'll unlearn all the things that we tried to teach them. So one of the things that we have to do is really look at the whole continuum of their career. To succeed in this medical school, we have to change the culture of the residency programs, change the culture of the hospitals, change the culture of the practices. And we are lucky because between the university and our health system, we have input into every one of those steps along their career.
You mentioned earlier that there are, what was it, 13, did you say, new medical
In planning, right.
Okay. Have any of them gotten a jump on you and done anything that you might be able to pick up from them, or are you all more or less fending?
I sure hope so. And in fact, we're very lucky. There's going to be a number of meetings of the key faculty of these new medical schools, and I'm hoping we all can share our war stories and our successes and learn from each other.
Is there a possibility that maybe a consortium of some sort might be set up?
I would not surprise me at all that
well,
happens.
You ought to do that and pick that up as one of your jobs. Head up another one.
I think one of the good things about medical education is people tend to be pretty generous sharing their good ideas.
Well, can you give me any idea at this point of how far you've gone along in this? I mean, have you already, or is it still sort of feely out there?
So we have organized the planning process for the accreditation, which will involve literally hundreds of people doing different aspects of the planning of the school.
Now, these are people already within?
People within the university and within the health system, and a handful of selective early people that we will hire.
Okay.
We are beginning the planning of the physical plant, both the temporary building as well as the permanent buildings. And we are lining up a timeline for when we will actually have to hire faculty that we don't have already existing in the two institutions.
And the faculty will be coming from any part of
any place, right?
Any part of the country. Well, I was about to say, have you got an application form? It sounds very exciting, and I'd like you to come back and visit us again when you get this thing going, if I'm around. But I do appreciate you coming in today, and I wish you well, and I think it's going to be a wonderful success.
Well, thank you very much.
And thank you for joining us today. And thank you for joining us, too, and we'll see you again next week.